Coming in hot. What's good, everybody?
Hi.
Hey.
These are my friends, Minwoo, Mwawi, and Mandela. We over here in the UK. Today is the 12th of, what is it? The 12th of August?
August, yeah.
Saturday, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And I wanted to talk to my friends about studying in the UK. And so I decided to bring us all together, and we're just going to have a quick conversation so that anybody who is out there who maybe wants to study in the future or just wants to check us out in our beautiful faces can always come through and just catch up on this discussion. So first, I'm going to go ahead with gentleman to my left. His name is Minwoo Kang. He studied psychology at a master's level in, where was this? Was this in Edinburgh?
It's Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be studying a PhD in psychology, what was this?
It's counseling
Counseling.
psychology, yeah.
Counseling psychology in Manchester. Can you just give the people a little bit of intro on why you decided to study psychology and what kind of got you interested in coming here?
All right. Well, yeah. Basically, I was truly interested in human beings, and it's a broad question, but I'm more into how we behave and what really made me, live intentionally, or it's quite more about myself. Like,
Yeah.
Because I used to do engineering,
Okay.
and I was engineer on the ship, and I felt that was not my work. So those time I really thinking about what the purpose of my life is. And then that really into the human kind of basic question, like what is the human, and then it's more like scientific way. I found psychology can answer it, and then,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the
dope.
reason why.
It's kind of cool that you was talking about being on a ship too as an engineer, because you were kind of looking at how machines work in that respect.
Yes.
And you kind of transferred over to how humans work. It's like a different
very
machine.
different though.
All right. To his left is beautiful Mwawi. Can you tell the people what you're studying and why you decided to come to the UK? Actually, I didn't ask him that, but we'll go into that next.
Alright. Should I just speak from
Yeah.
here?
Yes. No, just go ahead.
Alright. My name is Mwawi. I'm from Malawi, and I came to the UK to study a master's in public policy at Nottingham Trent University. It was a very random situation. I think I kind of had like a calling to the course, but at the same time, it's also just something that just landed because I wanted to just kind of get out, wanted to get out and see if I could do something different. And
We'll get into that idea of getting out in a little bit, because I think that's really interesting. But before that, last but not least, obviously, Mandela. Can you tell the people what you're here for? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm called Mandela. So currently I'm studying finance. I think I've always been in the field of finance, like way back, and yeah. My educational background has been in finance, professional background has been in finance. So I just really wanted to increase my scope further in finance, and so I decided to push it forward to probably, study in the UK. Get a grip of what London. Everywhere in the world. London is the financial hub of the world. Studying in the place where things happens. It gives you access to everything you want to know, and that's it. So I chose UK in the first place.
All right, that's a beautiful answer, actually. And just for the future, try and keep the mic like kind of close to here, so we might have to do a little bit of passing back and forth. But apologies for that.
Okay,
But
sorry,
before we
sorry
get
about
into
that. Sorry.
No,
Question.
Yes.
So we were supposed to talk about like why we chose the course first as well.
No. We'll get into it. It's just a flowing conversation. It's flowing conversation.
Right.
So next part is why I wanted to ask is, and you were talking about this with being in London as the financial hub of the world. Like that makes sense as to why you wanted to come to the UK. You are from Cameroon. Mwawi, as you said, is from Malawi, and Minwoo is from South Korea. And so I'm going to ask you really quick, why did you decide to, well, maybe I'll start with you again, Minwoo. Why did you decide to come to the UK to study? Why did you decide to come to Europe and then maybe specifically to Glasgow and now to Manchester?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I really wanted to try, another culture, like opposite from like East, like Asian, like quite Confucianistic, or like very family-wise culture. I wanted to avoid, like in a way, some part of my mind, and used to travel around Europe, and I found Europe is quite chill, more chill, I say, and then more relaxed, but
Interesting.
really open mind. People are very open. So I wanted to study here.
Okay.
And actually, I didn't really mean to choose UK, but I could speak English, so I just choose UK rather than other Germany or
Well, you'd have to learn a language.
Yes.
That's a very interesting perspective, because I think you come from it from South Korean culture is very like hyper competitive, right? Or
Yes.
like it's very like I could see
Retention.
that. Yeah. And so coming from that to the UK, I could see how you could see this as a more relaxed.
Compared to that.
Yeah, but I think they might have a little bit of a different take, which is going to be interesting to hear about. So, Mwawi, can you tell us about why you decided to come to the UK to study public policy?
Right, that's where I come in now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I did study economics in my bachelor's, and I minored in social work, which everybody found a bit weird. I was also like, okay, why didn't I study politics? Because like politics in Malawi is a bit of a mess. You don't really know how things work that side because there's no actual ideology. There's no right wing, left wing. It's just multi-party and nepotism, really. So I was like, studying politics in Malawi is definitely not a thing. Like, I'm not really gonna learn anything. And then I was like, okay. And after like COVID-19, I wrote my dissertation on basically the telecommunications sector and how it was kind of lacking with just providing like access to data to students, especially like in a very poor country such as Malawi. And it's COVID-19, everyone's like distance learning, you need the internet, and yet data costs are high and everything. So I was like, okay, somebody needs to like do something about it, but I could barely find information. Well, I hope they don't take my degree away, but I rigged a few things. But the data came out well because I was doing econometrics and everything, so that's like you working with numbers and stuff. So I did like my rations and everything. But yeah, it came out really well, and the hypothesis was not rejected. So yeah, and then I really thought about how I wanted to move forward, and that's when I decided that okay, I want to be a change maker, I want to be a leader, I want to be able to address things that happen, especially towards the youth, like the problems that we face, because if we talk about it and actually come together, we can find solutions around it. But then I guess I was lacking that structure of actually figuring out how do I make decisions, coming from economics and then thinking about welfare was where I was. I guess that's what kind of made me also figure out that I want to help people because of that welfare aspect. And yeah, then the UK was like, okay, the UK has that history in like policy making. The UK has that history as like modern.
They colonized the world for a reason. They
Exactly.
started policy. They started the whole game of politics.
And like on top of that, it's like that's where the English Parliament town, came about after like the Greek party, after the Greek basically the Greek Athens democratic situation.
Politicos or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
The democratically elected body.
Yeah, exactly. And they started that, and then I feel like the English came right after that. And at the end of the day, I was like, if there's somewhere where I'm gonna learn how governments work, how systems function, it's definitely gonna be the UK.
So on that, let's just go to the next question. Would you do it again? Because those are all really good questions.
Yeah.
Or all really good answers. Sorry to what seems to be like a bit of a culture shock situation, to where you're kind of being transplanted from something that you're familiar to something you're not. And we all have various reasons. So me, as somebody from the States, this is a little bit less of a culture shock for me. Okay. Obviously, right? This both Western context. Yeah. So I'm not as like wading in the water, but at the same time, I recognize that the system here, in terms of the education system, can sometimes be a little bit tough to navigate for international students. So maybe you could speak, both of you guys, and then Minwoo to speak to if you had any issues coming into the system, what those might have been in terms of getting connected, getting your sense of belonging, and then beyond that, if you would do it again, given the good and the bad.
Well, like given even just coming here, like when I was literally on that bus, like about to go on the plane, I was like, whoa, like I'm waving to my family, like bye, I'm gonna go start this again. Yeah. It was exciting, and actually thinking about all these opportunities, all the different people you're gonna meet, all the new things you're gonna learn. Like I was like, okay, it's exciting. It's dope. But I guess I didn't really do my research on how I'm actually gonna navigate when I'm in the UK. I just thought I'm gonna figure that out when I'm there, which is definitely not the best way to go. Because like literally I had to, like I told you before, like I had to like learn how to get on a tram. Like literally the next day as soon as I got here, like landed in the UK, drove to Nottingham, and the next day I had class. No freshers week, nothing. And that's a lot. Like, but at the same time, that drive to actually figure it out is what's kept me going. And when it comes to like challenges in like the education system, my first term paper was about home because I didn't really understand how things work this side as much, and I didn't really have that confidence to talk about like even politics in the West. Even when I had this friend out there, she's American, so she, you know, you guys are very passionate about politics. Like it literally dictates your lifestyle or your values anyway. And like I was there like, okay, I can't really converse like that. But like at the end of the day, I was like, okay, that means I have to learn. And like my second term paper, that's when I really took some time and figured out what kind of system I actually am in and how that system works. And it's really not that difficult. Like,
so yes or no?
Well, I'll do it again with more information.
Okay, I like that answer.
Yeah.
All right, Del, what about you? So tell us about what are the struggles, and you've given us a little bit of the positives. Maybe go into that more, and then tell us, would you do it again?
Yep. I think Mwawi has been, more of the positive side, Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll approach it in a different way. I'll approach the question in a different way because academically, I think almost what I was, taught in school is what I already knew, So I think my expectations were a little bit maybe just too high for what I witnessed in my classrooms. I was expecting something different. I had a whole different vision about studying in the UK. Like
Can you bring the mic closer? Bring the mic closer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me say from back home, it was more of the teachers, students. So more teaching, reading, going to do your research and all that. So, but then I don't know, my own, I would say, like Mom would say, lack of research. For me, I just figure out, in the West, things are very much practical. So me coming here, maybe I'll get involved in a practical part of finance, and so that was it. And when I came here, that wasn't the case. It was almost the same way the teachers back home. And I'm like, okay, let me try to do the networking thing. I've met students from different backgrounds, different countries, and all that. Maybe let me try networking with the students and all that. And then I realized that okay, here is different. Networking here is totally different. Like everybody, it's partitioned in their own groups, and for you to penetrate those groups, it's a big, yeah, it's tough. It was a very tough thing, or it was tough altogether. So the networking side went down also, same as the the expectations.
Well, what's the difference? What's the difference between networking in Cameroon and networking in Nottingham? Like, what is the main thing you saw as a difference?
Okay, the difference with networking in Cameroon, yeah,
or maybe
because
just like
I think that the people in Cameroon are very much open, very much social, very much approachable. Meanwhile, that wasn't the case. You can't.
You think maybe it's because we are from a different culture too, so maybe it's like they're maybe more open internally than they are to people that are coming from a different culture. So it's like they see you as an international student.
Yeah, but also it's not like where I'm coming from. There were no international students. There were international students coming to, who come to Cameroon to educate themselves. Especially to learn English.
Yeah.
So we had international students from so many countries, but then we integrated them. They felt at home.
Yeah.
But that was not the case here. it was totally different. I don't know. That was my experience. I don't know about mine.
Fair
I
enough.
don't know,
What would you
was
change?
your
What would you change?
experience?
Well,
What's
let's
your
let me answer the question really quick, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
we'll get into the landing of like maybe some of the things that you would change, and then some of the things that you would advise for people in the future. But really quick, Minwoo, what is something that was kind of an anchor for you coming here, and then would you? Obviously, you're doing it again because you're going
Yeah.
to Manchester to
Yeah.
study your PhD. So, what was great
Yeah.
about it for you, and why did you enjoy this
Oh wow,
experience?
yeah. I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed this whole masters, and I'm really excited to do next one as well. For me, like definitely there are so many hurdles, hardships. But I feel like if there is a hurdles, like if you like come up that,
Yeah.
I think there is so many things, so many opportunities, and so many experience like after that.
Mm.
So yeah, for example, I saw so many like especially East Asian people who are shy and not really familiar with this kind of culture. They're just gathered together in the same community. But I try to really approach other people, like other cultures, but I realize actually I might be the problem sometimes, rather than they're discriminating.
What do you mean by that? That's interesting that you would say that.
Yeah. So for example, like because I totally live in opposite culture. Like I learned this kind of face expression or this kinds of manner is normal in Korea, but that can be interpreted differently here. Like for example, they might think I'm shy or I'm a bit rude or very negative, very how can I say, not confident, that kind of things.
Fair enough.
And how I talk also interpret differently.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that kind of differences. So I might sometimes I thought like that can be a bit discrimination or that is like that's not acceptable. But actually, in some point, I also give them some clues.
Yeah.
They react right that way.
Yeah.
So like in a both way, I'm only talking about, of course, there's definitely discrimination and like prejudice, but at the same time, I have to work out to get rid of that.
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
that's a very good
yes.
psychologist answer.
Yeah.
Also, as somebody, do you know what? Are you familiar with the term nunchi? I think I might be getting the word wrong, but it's this concept that apparently came from South Korea, that is about like the way that you guys go about international diplomacy, because you are very on the geopolitical stage seen as kind of like the referees are the good guys in most situations. Like you're not going to be bringing down the hammer. And I almost feel like as a culture, most Asian cultures are like collective in the sense to where it's very, family dominated.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so coming from that, but also having that politeness to you, I wonder if like then coming here, there's like maybe the individualist and maybe a little bit more rudeness.
Yeah.
And there's like that clash that happens that
for
where
sure.
you have
Yeah,
to work
of course.
that out.
Of course.
So,
There is conflict.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's really how you deal with it. Like
Yeah.
definitely it's like I wouldn't recommend this culture or this living here to everyone. It's more about like how you feel and how you fit this culture.
Yeah.
So I think it's really about like very flexible.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's a beautiful. Yeah, that's a great way to even think about that too. Is like everyone kind of has their situations.
For sure. Yeah.
So let's go back to Mandela. We'll work our way back over here for this last question. It's just any advice for folks in the future, and then if you have any things in terms of what you're working on in the future, you want to have any self plugs, maybe research projects, business ideas, things that you want to do in the future with your education. Maybe just talk about that a little bit too. But mostly, what is some advice you can give people?
Yeah, I think the only advice I would give, it's anyhow, it all depends on your reasons and for your reasons for coming to study. It all depends, and it depends on the individual. So, whosoever wants to school in the UK, do your research well, make sure it's in line with your future goals professionally. If it's academically, it has to be in line. So do proper research, especially everything in terms of your school, your education, your career track, even the way live in the UK, especially depending on it, like for instance, if you're international students, should do more research on how international students live or adapt or integrate in the society. So with that, you'll be able to make your judgment. So I don't think I'll give any direct yes or no if you want. It all depends on the individual. So for me, I think my objective it's always been the same. I've always been like the same. It has always been the same. It hasn't changed from the beginning. Like I know living undergrad, I've always been interested in the stock market, the stock exchange. I've always been interested in it. I think my research paper was on it, and even when I got involved professionally, it's been on it. And though the stock market in my country wasn't very developed, but I then had to figure out a way on how to get involved in it locally in my environment based on what I had, and it really did work out. And coming to the UK, wanted to be exposed more, because it's connected with. I know that maybe through the school I will be educated on how to use other systems that will give me access to information on how to get in stocks in a more bigger portfolio, because it's all about portfolio when it comes to stocks. And yeah, and the
So
one of the
getting
most
access to the marketplaces.
the marketplace the
Right.
marketplace is one thing, and to succeed in the marketplace is information. Without information you can't succeed in the marketplaces, and that is why I needed a training on how to navigate those systems, especially when it comes to, and when we spoke about Bloomberg earlier. you know,
Like, I'm so
like practically when I was coming here to the UK, like I applied in like several universities, and everyone was on investment.
Yeah.
And I came here with finance and investment banking. I'm like, yeah,
What was that thing about Bloomberg that while we were talking
Yeah,
about? What was that all about?
Well, it's basically a women in business launch where they kind of like teach you just a little bit about the terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that you become like an analyst and you become an analyst basically, and like a sales person.
Yeah.
So like basically you kind of also have to be informed on maybe economic indicators, the markets. You have to be informed on like FX and fixed
Fair
income
enough.
and equities and and
Interesting
forwards and options. And this is things I did like in my economics degree, but it's like I need to like
Mm.
refresh and stay current at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
But, yeah.
So what about the future for you? What does that look like? Are you staying here? Are you moving around? Are you going back home? And then also, what is some advice that you could give somebody who wants to study in the UK or is thinking about it?
Well, for real, the future looks bright.
That's good.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Diversifying my niche
Mm.
and playing to my strengths. So yeah, you just gotta work with whatever you can work with. Don't just say you came here for that degree and that's it. Like you have to figure out ways around it. So play to your strengths. If you're like a quick learner, learn something new and focus on it. Get really good at something. And at the same time, like what was the other thing? Like I always have like a million thoughts. Yeah, get to know before you come here. Know the economic situation, know the political situation. Like, don't come here not
That's
knowing
so
there's
hilarious
inflation.
coming from somebody from Malawi, though, because it's like this is like the most stable place on the planet. What's going to happen here?
Yeah.
No, but like currently, right?
Well, I mean, there's always tension everywhere.
Exactly. Like you,
Yeah,
I didn't know
you just
that
need
like
to-
the UK's inflation rate was at its highest like in 40 years. Currently, I just came through
Yeah.
like, yeah, we just gonna see what's happening
Yeah,
that
yeah,
side.
yeah,
Like
right,
you
right,
gotta
right,
know
right.
those things.
But
so that you
relative,
can
but like
budget.
relative to where like a lot of people will be coming from, the problem is probably going to be worse. No.
Well, not really, because at the end of the day, people always come to the UK whether things are good or worse because it does kind of have that stabilization effect, and it
Yeah.
kind of it's always a sure thing. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna invest in something that you know is gonna give you
And
a
it's
high
been
return,
here for
high risk,
hundreds
high
and
return,
hundreds of
right?
years, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be fine. I mean, the kingdom is falling. Definitely.
Relax. I'm trying to monetize this on my YouTube. All right, last answer before we get out of here. Minwoo, thank you. But by the way, thank you guys all for joining me. Last one is, what are any advice that you have for the people that might be watching this sometime in the
Advice.
future? Yeah, and then
so
what are you going to be
people-
working on too in the future?
So people who wants to come here.
if they people who are maybe living in whether it's somewhere in Africa or Asia, Korea, China, anywhere,
wherever,
and they want to come to UK.
Well, I definitely can say, you know, UK is like very multicultural, and I think it's I want to believe it's they're still working on it.
I mean, you can see it right here. We're all in the UK right now.
I can. I would like to see it positively, and that's what I believe in personally, and I want to what I want to achieve in my life. So you know the differences made some new opportunities, and diversity made some possibility. So I think that's my theme of life, and then just one I want to recommend. Maybe just open mind. Just maybe just try, try. Why not? Try and
don't
then.
let it knock you down.
Stay open, stay true. I love that. I love that. Well, once again, this was a pseudo open mic. As you can tell, I'm just experimenting with this situation. My friends here were super accommodating and decided to talk to me about their schooling. And if you can leave a like, leave a comment, let us know what you think. If you're thinking about going to the UK or somewhere else in Europe for the future, maybe you leave a comment about that. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one, and take it easy, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
That was fun.
That was,
All right.
yeah.